Hello, class. Today we're going to learn how to divide with decimals. So when dividing by decimals, if the divisor has a decimal in it, we want to make that divisor into a whole number. Now, the way you do this is by multiplying by tens. So looking at our first number, we have 15 divided by 7.5. Again, our divisor is 7.5. We want to make that a whole number. We want to get rid of that decimal. So the way to do that is to multiply it by 10. So if I multiply 7.5 times 10, remember when you're multiplying decimals by multiples of 10, all you need to do is move the decimal over the same amount of spots as zeros the tens have. So here, 10 has 1 0. So all we do is when we multiply 7.5 times 10 is move that decimal over one spot. So 7.5 times 10 is 75. Now, since we multiplied the divisor by 10, we have to multiply the dividend by 10 as well. You have to multiply both sides by the same amount. So again, since I multiplied 7.5 times 10, I need to multiply 15 times 10 because both sides you need to multiply the same amount. Now looking at 15, 15 can also be written as 15.0. 15 and 15.0 are the same number. So again, I follow the same rules when multiplying by multiples of 10. Since 10 has 1 0, I just move the decimal over one spot. So 15 times 10 is 150. Now, since I have no decimal in the divisor, all I do is just divide. So 150 divided by 75 equals 2, which is the same as 15 divided by 7.5. Looking at my next example, I have 8.4 divided by 0.6. So again, the divisor 0.6, I want to get rid of that decimal. So I need to move that decimal over one spot. Again, when you multiply a decimal by multiples of 10, you're just moving it over to the right the same amount as zeros. So again, 0.6 times 10, I'm moving the decimal over to the right one spot because there's 1 0. So 0.6 times 10 gives me the whole number 6. And because I multiplied the divisor by 10, I also need to multiply the dividend by 10. So since I multiplied 0.6 by 10, I also need to multiply 8.4 times 10. Again, the same rules. Since I'm multiplying by 10, I just move the decimal over one spot. So 88.4 times 10 is 84. Now I can just divide. 84 divided by 6 is 14. So 8.4 divided by 0.6 is also 14. A simple way to do this is just notice you're just moving the decimals the same amount on both numbers. So look at my first problem, 7.5 divided into 15. If I move the decimal to the right one time on the right side, the right number, I'm moving it one time on the left number. Same thing with my second equation, 8.4 divided by 0.6. If I'm moving the decimal one spot for the divisor, I also just move it one spot for the dividend. Looking at our third example, we have 9.9 divided by 0.33. Now this time, my divisor has two numbers to the right of the decimal spot. So instead of multiplying by 10, this time I need to multiply by 100 because I need to move two decimal spots. So when I multiply 0.33 times 100, because the 100 as a multiple of 10 has two zeros, I move the decimal spot two spots. So 0.33 times 100 is 33. Now again, since I moved the decimal spot two places on my divisor, I just move it two spaces on my dividend. Remember, 9.9 is the same as 9.90. So since I moved my decimal points two spots for my divisor, 0.33, I move the decimal two spots. That means I move the decimal two spots for my dividend, 9.90. So looking at 9.90, I just move my decimal two spots also. However many spots you move the dividend, you move the decimal the same amount of spots for your divisor and vice versa. So 9.90 times 100 is 990. So now when I divide 990 by 33, I get 30. So 9.9 divided by 0.33 is 30. Now, when you're dividing decimals and your dividend has a decimal, you don't need to move the decimal or change your numbers at all. All you have to do is make sure that your decimal is lined up in the correct spot. So looking at our first problem, we have 24.6 divided by 3. So all I'm going to do is set up my equation and just making sure the decimal's in the right spot. So 3 divided into 24.6. Now I solve my division equation. Ready? 3 doesn't go into 2. 3 goes into 24 8 times. 3 times 8 is 24. 24 minus 4 is 0. Carry down the 6. Notice I don't do anything with the decimal yet. All right. Now 3 goes into 6 2 times. Now, just make sure you put your decimal in the right spot. So I just follow the decimal straight up. So the decimal will go between the 8 and the 2. So my answer is 8.2. Again, the division equation is just the same. Just make sure your decimal lines up in the right spot. Looking at the next equation, 21.25 divided by 5. Again, you don't need to move your decimal or change your numbers. Just make sure it's lined up in the correct spot. So, looking at the first number, 5 goes into 2 0 times, so I go over. 5 goes into 21 4 times. 5 times 4 is 20. 21 minus 20 is 1. Bring down the 2. Again, notice I don't do anything with the decimal. I just leave it there. 5 goes into 12 2 times. 2 times 5 is 10. 12 minus 10 is 2. Bring down the 5. 5 goes into 25 5 times. Now that I'm done, now I look at where the decimal is and I just carry it up to the correct spot. The decimal goes between the 4 and the 2. So 21.25 divided by 5 is 4.25. And finally, we have a division problem where both the dividend and the divisor both have decimals. So here, the first thing we need to do is we need to get rid of that decimal in the divisor. So again, to get rid of the decimal, we need to multiply by multiples of 10. So looking at 3.5, we need to multiply by 10 to move the decimal over. So again, when you're multiplying a decimal by 10, you move the decimal over however many zeros there are. So 3.5 times 10, you move the decimal over one spot to the right. So our new number is 35. Now, because we multiplied the right by 10, we also need to multiply the left by 10. So we need to multiply 50.75 times 10. Now remember, if you move the decimal over one spot to the right for the divisor, you also just move the decimal one spot to the right for the dividend, right there. So our new number, 50.75 times 10, is 507.5. Now we just need to solve using division. And the important part, again, is to make sure your decimal is just lined up in the right spot. So our new equation is 35 divided into 507.5. Now I just divide. So 35 goes into 50 one time. 1 times 35 is 35. 50 minus 35 is 15. Bring down the 7. 35 goes into 157 4 times. 4 times 35 is 140. 157 minus 140 is 17. Bring down the 5. And 35 goes into 175 5 times. Now, don't forget about the decimal. All you need to do is follow the decimal into the right spot. So our final answer for 50.75 divided by 3.5 is 14.5.